Hi everybody, hope you're well. This video is to do with why your horse wins competitions even though your horse might not be specifically designing its skill set for those competitions. So if you've seen the video that I did about competitions for any breed, in that I'm focusing on actually building the skills, not the actual competition wins. So in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about winning the competitions. So one of the questions that was posed to me lately by Jessica Kuntzman was that she has a Fjord and its high genetic skills were gallop and speed and dressage. And according to the graph that I had, which you would have seen in that video on blupping or competitions for any breed, those gallop races would have been perfect for that particular skill set. But she found that whenever she entered into gallop competition, she didn't really get that many wins, but when she went into jumping competitions, she did quite well. And there is a reason for this, and that's what I'm going to talk about now. So what you find whenever you go into competitions, and I've got a thoroughbred here which has the exact same skill set as the Fjord that we mentioned. Now this can apply to different breeds, and we'll talk through this. So this horse is highest in gallop, speed and dressage, okay? And this horse therefore would be best to go into gallop competitions for bolting. Now you need to know the difference between when I'm talking about competitions for bolting, which is getting skills for those from those competitions, versus getting wins. So what I'm going to talk about is wins here. So if we go into gallop competitions, you can see that the box up here, gallop, speed and dressage, okay? And we could enter lots of these competitions, but one of the things that we're probably going to run into a problem is the fact that there are a lot of horses who are higher in those particular skills. And the reason some horses actually win different competitions types better is purely because the skills are different, but some of the skills that they're high in work for that competition. So if we have a scroll down to this horse, what you'll see is we have 21 gallop wins, 22 trot wins, 37 cross country wins, and 58 show jumping wins. And you might be thinking, why has he got so many show jumping wins when technically it's actually better at gallop? Well, the reason for this is, and I'll show you now, if we go into show jumping, you will see the box up here, it's jumping, dressage and speed, okay? And what happens is, if you have a horse that genetically is still good in two of those skills, so this horse, as we mentioned earlier, is good at gallop, dressage and speed. And the secondaries in this competition type include dressage and speed. And jumping is very low. This horse is actually very low in show jumping, as you can see here. Now trot it's slightly lower in, but we're just going to focus on jumping for the moment. And the thing is, whenever that happens, and when you have a horse that's low in the first primary skill, you can go into lower competitions, therefore you're more likely to run against lower skilled horses, less likely to come up against skillers and things like that, and therefore you've actually a better chance of winning. So you always want to think about your secondaries whenever it comes to getting competition wins. Like I frequently, even though I have horses which are extremely good in cross country, for example, I get their wins in Western Pleasure. And the reason for this I will show you in a moment, but sometimes it's actually easier to get wins in different competition types because it's easier to fill low competitions. So that's why this horse, it actually may be easier for me to go into a bunch of show jumping competitions with this particular horse, because this horse has two skills which it's quite good in, and it's rubbish in jumping, for example, but whenever I take it into those competitions it's going to do quite well. So what I'll do now is I'll show you how this can be applied. So I've got a Connemara here, and Connemara are notoriously good for like cross country because their stamina is high, and stamina is the primary skill for that particular type of competition. They're good in dressage and they're good in jumping, so that makes them a good cross country horse. But equally they can actually do quite well in cutting, and the reason for that is because they're actually high in stamina, speed and dressage, which is good for cutting competitions. Now, why do I get wins in Western Pleasure? Because the trot's really low, it's easy to fill, but the two other skills that are important for Western Pleasure are actually dressage and stamina, which are actually this horse's two highest skills. So I might go into Western Pleasure like this, I might look for really low difficulty competitions and then enter those, because I've actually quite a high chance of winning them, because my trot's really low, but my secondaries in this particular for the competition are high. Because this horse's best skill is stamina, and its second best is dressage. And even though trot it's absolutely terrible in it, it can go in those low competitions going to go up against reasonably low horses most of the time, and therefore have a better chance of winning. So whenever I say that some competitions are better for getting wins in, doesn't necessarily mean that they are the competitions that your horse is best at in its 3 whole skills. Like, I bold most of my horses in the competition type that they're suited for, and sometimes they'll get a couple of wins in that. So whenever I'm bolding my Connemara's, I might do some cross-country competitions to bold the 3 skills, but it's actually really handy to then go in Western Pleasure, because Western Pleasure's difficulty obviously is trot, and entering cross-country competitions doesn't increase trot, so I can usually still go into low level Western Pleasure competitions. I could do the same with this horse for trot, and also, actually, I'll just switch it over to show you what I mean. So if I take this horse, I could go into trot competitions at reasonably low difficulty, because once again the trot's really low, but this horse is reasonably good in speed. Even though speed isn't one of this horse's best skills, it could still do reasonably well. And going back to actually to that thoroughbred that we mentioned earlier, this thoroughbred's really low in trot, but it's reasonable dressage and it's reasonable speed. So I could go into trot competitions and I can see 0 difficulty. 0 difficulty trot competitions are one of the easiest things to fill, so that might be something that I want to do in my thoroughbred to get wins. And this is kind of why sometimes you will find with your horses they actually win better in competitions where their lowest skill is the one that affects the difficulty of the competition. Because as I mentioned in a video I did about filling, the first one in the box, the first skill in the box affects the difficulty of the competition, how hard that competition is. And it also has an outcome on the win, or whether the horse wins or not. But the 2 skills underneath it are also very important. So if you're going to go in to competitions to get wins, sometimes it is easier to go for something your horse is actually really lousy at, but it has good skills in the secondary form. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. So thank you to Jessica Kuntzman for the question, and hope you have a lovely day.